Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Game Night. I'm your host, Dr. Niederhaus. I don't look like Alex Trebek, but you'll see tonight we'll be playing some games. Kahoot is one of them. Jeopardy is another one in some classrooms as well. So just a short presentation to talk about Game Night, what the purpose of it is, also testing and what that means for this school year. So the purpose is to basically shed light on students preparing for state assessments, which are taking place this month and a little bit in May, in kind of a fun, interactive environment. We think of tests or assessments, we always think of that as fun, but we're trying to take a good spin on it and have some fun tonight in that format. And I really want to expose parents. Students have been practicing the past few months about the different testing formats and questioning that they'll have on the test, but also parents who become informed about that. There are some testing changes I'll go over as well tonight, and hopefully you had a chance to grab some of the handouts, which I'll refer to later on as you came in. And believe it or not, we're only a couple months and actually a few weeks away from summer, so about 7 weeks away from summer. So I want to talk a little bit about summer, how important that is in your child's education. So looking at last year, if you remember last year, even if you were in third grade, you took some online tests. So I know we have a lot of fourth grade parents here, and some obviously fifth grade as well. And then last year, there's actually more testing. If you remember, we had testing in February, we also had a little bit in March and then April, and there's a lot more. So luckily, for students and for teachers, the state has scaled back on that, and we actually have about half of testing than we had last year. So that's definitely good. So these are our results, just basically the indicators, meaning did we meet the benchmark or did we meet the proficient standard that's set by the state of Ohio? You can see here, we actually did fairly well. The green check marks mean we met the standard or benchmark in each category last year. So fourth grade reading, 83%. Math, 83%. Reading, 78%. Social studies, 88. Math in fifth grade, 77. Fifth grade reading, 75. And science, 77% for fifth grade. So we met those indicators, which mean students are where they should be. Majority of them, roughly around 80% of the students are where they need to be for that grade level. You notice that we earned a B, which says 6 out of 7 on indicators. You'll notice down here at the bottom, the gifted indicator we did not meet. So there's different categories for gifted students to be proficient, and we are still working on that. Still working with our gifted coordinator and also our gifted teachers to continue to explore options and different lessons and skills to still develop our gifted and talented students. But overall, we compare these results to area school districts as well, and we are right in line with other area school districts, and actually we're a little bit higher in some categories too. I won't name names, but so I overall with these scores, I am impressed. It's a very positive score. One part that we're still working on, I don't have it up here, but you may have heard of it. It's called value added, which means shows how much students grow from beginning of the year to the end of the year. And that's something we're still working on. That's something we have a little bit lower scores on. But again, if we're looking at just, are the students meeting the standards in Ohio, we can definitely answer yes with these results. So last year, there was that whole transition from paper, which many of us are familiar with, right? Paper test, bubble in, A, B, C, or D, and transforming that and transitioning to online tests. So almost all schools in the state of Ohio, and many around the world, and the United States are now on online testing. So last year, you may have heard the word PARCC and AIR test. Well, this year is just AIR test. And that stands for American Institutes of Research. So there's no confusion there. Every test, science, math, social studies, and reading are all AIR tests. So students might be talking about that acronym or the word AIR. So this year we have basically 2 sessions of those content areas. We have 2 sessions for ELA or reading, about 90 minutes each. Math are 2 sessions at 75 minutes each. Fourth grade only takes a social studies test. They do not take science. Fifth grade only takes a science test. They do not take social studies. And those are both at 75 minutes each too. So you can see that. If you're more of a visual person as I am, you can see kind of where those fall and where they'll be taking tests in 7th and 8th grade as well. So really what the assessors are designed to do, measure a student's critical thinking, their problem-solving skills, and communicating, how well they communicate clearly as well. So very different formats that you were maybe used to when you grew up in your primary and secondary education, and I know mine as well, and even teachers. So different formats, and students are just going in, like I mentioned, bubbling in answers. Sometimes students are asked to select 2 answers, and based on those 2 answers versus the other answers, they get different point systems. So for ELA or reading, there's a grading criteria like a rubric, and the state looks for specific words, evidence in those words, in those phrases, to get those points. So sometimes students will just get a basic word and they'll get 1 point. But if they go find plenty of evidence, support for that phrase or the question and answer, they can earn up to 4 points. So it's not just 1 point wrong or 1 point or no points if you get it wrong and 1 point if you get it right. It's very more comprehensive, and again, it's kind of a 1 through 4 rating system for reading. Even math, students aren't just picking the correct answer, they're actually constructing tables and constructing graphs. So instead of just picking, if you think of a pie chart, instead of just picking the one that's 3/4, students actually have to construct 3/4. So they pull the different sections of that pie in to make 3/4. So there's a lot of more interactive format. And even with science, there's part A and part B answers. And sometimes in part B, they ask for 2 answers as well. And you get different points based on if you answer part A right, or you got part B right. And you could get different points that system too. So it is probably, it has been a little bit. It's just more complicated. It's more critical thinking, as I mentioned, and it has students problem solve and look at. There's not just maybe one answer that the question is asking. Even in social studies, there's interactive responses. So think of like a map. They don't just pick A, B, or C, or D by the location. They might actually drag, let's say the state of Ohio, have a map of the United States, and find where Ohio is on the outside, drag it into a certain location. So drag and drop skills for online testing. So as we talk about testing, and I know some students and teachers can get nervous about it and worried about it, but again, tonight is the night to kind of embrace it a little bit and understand kind of what its purpose is. And I want students to do their best and prepare as much as they can, and I want parents to help out in that process, but I don't want you to get stressed about it. We talk about high stakes testing. It doesn't, at this point, have an effect if you go to the next grade level, okay? We want you to do as good as well as you can, but 4th graders, if you don't meet that proficient level, you still most likely move on to the next grade level, okay? So hopefully you understand that too. They're not to retain students, they're not to keep them or hold them back, but it's basically an assessment to kind of see how we're doing as a school system, how we're doing as teachers and educators, and helping your students out. The interesting thing I think, as a principal of a school, is that we test once a year. We test in the spring. We've been doing it for a while. But really, we test throughout the whole school year. We're always assessing students. I mean, almost on a weekly and definitely on a monthly basis, we're assessing students in these different formats. Students that are in here, raise your hand if you've seen some of these tests already. Everyone should have their hand raised, okay? So students that are taking STAR assessments, those are benchmark assessments that take 3 times a year, kind of show us that they're making that growth from the fall, winter to the spring. Right now, they're wrapping up the spring ones, and I've even thrown a little incentive in there. If they increase their winter to spring score, what happens, guys? Bounce house, right? So in the mud run, they get a little ticket, and they get some extra time in the bounce house. So a little extra incentive for students, but that has great results. We have an online reading library that we use that has some comprehension questions. We use them for assessments, Ames, iReady. Those are just a variety of assessments that we use throughout the whole school year. So as much as we want to put some weight into the state testing, we're actually always assessing students, and not just getting a grade, but to show are they making progress, how does it influence our lessons on a day-to-day basis. So if they're not picking up on certain things or weak in certain areas, we're able to identify that quickly and accurately and then teach accordingly. So hopefully you had a chance to get a few of the handouts, and it says summer already, as I mentioned, so a couple months away from summer. some of those handouts have great tips and tools that you can look at and review, just little tidbits to help your student, whether it's physically, emotionally, or mentally. All of those have different tips for you. So, with the physical side, getting them fed properly. We actually are going to provide breakfast for students every day of testing. Our parent group has graciously offered to purchase breakfast for those days. So obviously they can eat at home, but studies have shown that students have a good breakfast in the morning do better on tests as well and are more alert during the school day. It really can help them mentally with their confidence and even emotionally with some support throughout those times. Our teachers created a handout for you, looks like this, that has free, so there's a key word, right? Free educational games that you can access over the summer. So it's really important that students continue to learn and grow over the summer. And a variety of online free resources that students have access to. Some of them require username and password, but you can use those too. Even some print resources to access, whether it's a local library or Barnes and Noble, if they have some great curriculum and content books to help students stay fresh over the summer. Quick statistic, and there is a handout that talks about reading and the importance of reading over the summer. And it says students who read more over the summer obviously do better in the fall, but they have to pick books that at their ability level, books that interest them, and they need your support. You need to kind of push your students a little bit to keep up and keep sharp on the reading and also math skills. So hopefully I've answered a few questions tonight about the state test. Just kind of a brief overview. Obviously I'm here all night if you have specific questions about either last year's test. Last year's tests were a little bit frustrating because we didn't get results back. It took almost 10 months after we took them. And I don't know if you're aware of that, it took a long time for the state to get us the test back. So we really didn't use a lot of the results for this school year. We're looking at those results and how we can improve a little bit this year, but even more next year too. But this year, what I've been told is that we'll receive the results back a little bit sooner so we can use it more for next year's purposes. But if you have any other questions about the testing, let me know. But I hope you do have a great night. We have a kind of fun night planned with some competitive games. Students, don't brag too much if you beat your parents, okay? Don't brag too much. I know there's some competitive banter going on back and forth as you entered in today. So again, parents, it is more challenging. And I think that's a big thing to point out for these tests is that they're rigorous and they're more challenging. And the stakes have been raised a little bit for testing and standards across the United States, especially in Ohio. So that's a good thing because we want students to do better, learn more, and achieve at higher rates as well. So I want to thank the parents, obviously you, for attending because you're a huge part of your child's education. I want to give a round of applause to the parent group and people back there for providing pizza. And also my teaching staff who took a night out or away from their families to prepare for tonight and to have these games for you, to have fun with your children too. So I thank them and their efforts as well. So without further ado, a quick little 10-second intro here. Has to do with basketball, if you're a basketball fan. I know I am. Happened to like the Chicago Bulls, and I played this last year as well, but it's a quick little thing about what we're here for tonight. Actually, switch ones.
I muted it. You muted the volume.
Did I mute it?
Mhm.
All right. Well, that didn't work. But basically what that was, it's just kind of the hype before a game, that teams get together, get in their huddle and say, something to kind of get them pumped up motivation-wise for the game. So that's what that portion was. So the Bulls were saying game time. But so next, we are going to look at your locations and
so you can see here where you should report tonight. We'll have a few rotations, especially in 4th grade. You'll have one classroom in math, one classroom for social studies, one classroom for ELA. But if you look at your homeroom class students, that's where you go first. For example, with Mrs. Bohr's class. If you're in her class, go to her classroom first. If you're in Burmeister, Sheldon, Carolyn Kesey, go to Burmeister's class first. In about 30 minutes, we'll rotate to a different class. Start Sheridan Calkins to Ms. Kesey's classroom. 5th grade, we have 5 classes going into 1. Elminger, Hall, Bachprater, Salmon, and Williams into room 197. That's the last room on the left. And Smith, Steinbauer, Kiss, and Mr. Kiss's classroom too. So again, thank you for coming tonight. I'll be here all night if you have questions about any of the testing. Enjoy and have fun. Also, we do have more pizza, so if you want another slice or two, you can grab more pizza. And we have the book fair tonight. So the book fair will be open until 8:30. Game night ends at 8 o'clock, but the book fair will be open until 8:30. So grab a few summer reading books.
I know. There's gonna be more people. No, go ahead.